Hello everyone, I'm going to be reading Dirty the Dog and the King of Mud Puddles. This story was written by my friend Stephanie Turner. I hope you enjoy it. We've got Bullseye in the background as well. Let's hope he behaves himself. Dirty is a dog, a smelly, scruffy, flea-bitten mongrel with two beady black eyes and a large wet black nose. He has a huge, drooling, soft pink tongue that is too long and sometimes drags along the floor. Dirty, as you can tell, is an incredibly filthy dog with a thick coat of long, multicoloured tangled hair. He smells of many disgusting things he comes across each day. For Dirty's favourite thing to do is to roll around the ground. He will roll in almost anything that sticks to his fur, but nothing compares to the King of Mud Puddles. The mud puddle holds everything disgusting that you can think of, and Dirty likes nothing better to roll in it after a long walk in the park. It had been a wet, slushy day, and everyone's spirits were low. By that, I mean everyone's spirits except for Dirty's. He was determined to make the best of things. So when the rain finally stopped, he let himself into the garden and headed for his favourite mud puddle. The rain had made his puddle bigger, and he began to drool at the thought of rolling in it. The puddle was very muddy, and the wind had blown a cover of leaves and twigs into where they floated on the top. Although he was already very mucky and he smelt of dog food and dried mud, he jumped into the puddle and began to roll about in it, his tongue lolling happily from side to side. He splashed the rubbish heap, he splashed the old hedge, he splashed everything. He was having such a good time. After many minutes of splashing and rolling, he crawled out from the King of Mud Puddles. He trotted back to the house where he shook all the brown water from his body, leaving him moist and muddy. A small twig was tangled in his fur from all his rolling, and it was now well and truly stuck. Wiping his feet on the doggy mat like a good dog, he trotted towards his fluffy dog bed to have a well-earned rest. Feeling thoroughly pleased with himself, he wandered into the kitchen, where he left a perfect set of muddy footprints. His warm bed was by the fireplace, and he ran across his owner's cream carpet, leaving clumps of wet mud to dry. Tired and ready for a good nap, he wriggled his bottom and leapt straight into his bed. Then he yawned, closed his eyes and fell asleep. He was woken by a terrible noise that sounded very similar to the noise that a woman makes when she is screaming in anger. Before he knew it, he'd been lifted off the ground and was forced to look into the angry eyes of his owner. She then began to shout at him in her funny way, while he waited patiently in her hands for her to calm down so he could protest. But I was asleep. This seemed to make her angrier. She held him in front of her, away from her clean clothes, and placed him on the kitchen counter while she disappeared into the garage. Dirty didn't dare jump down. It was too high for him, and one quick glance on the floor below made him back up against the kitchen tiles, trembling. She came back a minute later, carrying something large and white that made him shake even more. It was a large, white dog bath. She put him in the bath down on the kitchen floor and looked at the scraggy, shivering mud ball that was backed against the kitchen wall. She grinned. She was going to clean that dog up once and for all. She left Dirty on the kitchen counter and began to fill a big bucket with warm, frothy water. She emptied the bucket into the dog bath, then placed a clean white towel next to her shoulder. There was one thing that Dirty hated more than anything in the world, and that was having a bath. He hated feeling clean. Life just wasn't the same when he didn't have the odd fly buzzing around his head or dried patches of mud on his back. Finally, with the bath full of water and bubbling, she picked up Dirty and lowered him into the bath. He kicked up in a mighty fuss as his legs began pumping furiously away. Trying to stay out of the water, he began to wriggle in his owner's hands, doing anything he could to get away from the awful bath. It didn't work. In he went. Shampoo was placed on his fur and rubbed along his unhappy body, while the other hand held him securely in the tub. A jug of water was dipped into the bath and began to rinse the shampoo off his body, leaving his fur flat, wet and twig-free. She picked him up, rubbing his fur with the fluffy towel, while he howled and growled. It didn't feel right. He wasn't dirty. How can you name a dog dirty when he's not? And it was true, because Dirty was clean. He wasn't happy, not at all. He felt fresh and airy. He didn't feel himself. And while his owner stood up to admire her work, a happy thought came to his head. Suddenly, he bolted, running as fast as his legs could carry him, out of the kitchen and towards the open door that leads out into the garden. There it was, the king of mud puddles. It was waiting for him, a small lake of brown water and dead bugs, and he rolled. He rolled, and he rolled, and he rolled, and he rolled and rolled again. And while he joyfully rolled, his owner came out and shouted at him to come away from the mud puddle. She shouted and she shouted and shouted and shouted again. If only she had locked the door first. There was nothing she could do. The damage was done, because Dirty was now dirty. Thank you, everyone.